We can start creating our dynamic products section. What we want to do is start off with a section element, add our container class and our products class. And here we can use the hashtag symbol to include our products ID. Inside of this, we'll create an H2, add our products text, create a div with a class of spacing, create a label, make this for our category filter. Then we simply want to put the text filter, create a select element with an ID of category filter. So we'll just go ahead and copy this, paste it here, and then go ahead and hit enter. And then we're not going to have a name, so we'll go ahead and delete that. Create an option for this select element, and our first value is going to be all, and add the text all. So you guys can see what's going on here. We created a label with the text filter, and then we have a select option here where we can choose whatever we want. So we need to have more than one choice. So what we'll do is copy this, paste it below 2 more times, and first we want to filter for reels. Change our text to reels, and then we want to filter for lures, and then change our text here to lures. And now you guys can see we have all 3 of our options. Underneath our select, we're going to create a div with a class of grid. Here we'll create another div element with the class card, and then we also want to add a data ID attribute. We'll just make this equal to 1 for now. Here we'll add an image element, and we'll go ahead and add an image of a reel right here. Now you guys can see that display. Make sure to add your alternative text and your loading attribute, make that equal to lazy. Create an H3 element, and for now we're just going to put reel, add a paragraph element, and just say description. Then we want to add another div, the class of card-footer. Add an H4 element, and we'll just put, for example, $200. Then we'll create a button that says buy now. And if we go down and look, you guys can see we have everything displaying, and the only thing that's styled is our button, because earlier on in our style sheet, we added some styling targeting all of our buttons. At this point, we'll go back to our styles.css file, and right before our media queries, we want to add all of the styling for our products grid. So first we want to target the products, change our margin to for rem and auto. Then we want to target the H2 element inside of our products class, change our font size to 2 rem, and align our text to the center. Next, we want to target our label, our select, and our option element. And for this, we'll just change our font size to 1.25 rem. Next, we can target just our select and option and change our padding to 0 and 1 rem. Now we need to target our grid class, change our display to grid, specify our grid template columns, and we want to say repeat, create 3 columns at 1 FR each, which is going to make sure that each column is the same size. Then we can add a gap of 4 rem and 2 rem. Next, we're going to target the products class and specifically the spacing class within our products. Change our margin to 0 and 2 rem. And now to start bringing this all together, we can target our card element, change our display to flex, change our flex direction to column, and add a gap of 1 rem. Next, we're going to target the image within our card class, change our width to 60%. Now we can target the H3 element within our card and the H4 element within our card footer. Make sure you add your period, change the font size to 1.25 rem, and change the margin to 0. Now for the card footer class, we can change our display once again to flex, align our items to the center, justify our content as space between, and then add a margin top of automatic. And we need to target the button within our card footer and make the margin top equal to one rem. So now you guys can see we have our 3-column layout. We only have one product right now, but there's space here for 2 more products. And you can see this if we go ahead and inspect our page and look at our grid right here. You guys are going to see the layout of that grid with 3 columns here. Now this works great for full-size screens, as you guys can see like this, but for mobile-size viewports like this, we don't need 3 columns. We want something a little bit less, like 2 columns. So to fix that, we can go down to our media query with the max width of 768 pixels. So what we're going to do is scroll back up, copy our grid template columns here, come down below, and we're just going to go ahead and target our grid class. And within this, we're going to paste our grid template columns. Instead of 3, I'm going to change that to 2. And now you guys can see that looks a lot better. Then on mobile devices, we want to target the description here. And we simply just want to change our display to none to clean it up a little bit for mobile devices. And now if we go back to our index.html, we can add each one of our products manually within our grid here, but that's going to become extremely lengthy. And then every time we want to add or take away a product, we have to come back in directly to the HTML and edit absolutely everything. But there's a much easier way to do this using JavaScript. So to do this, what you want to do is go to your File Explorer, and within our scripts folder, we're going to create a new file called products.js. And back in our index.html, we want to make sure that we successfully link to this. So you guys can see we already linked to our scripts.js file. So we can just go ahead and copy that, paste it down below. But now instead of navigating to our scripts.js, we're going to use our products.js. And again, make sure you have this defer attribute. So now we can navigate into our products.js file. And the first thing we need to do is create a constant variable called products and make this equal to an array here. Inside of this array, we're going to create one object for every single product that we want to have in our website. And between each object, we want to have a comma. So in JavaScript, the way objects work is they have key value pairs. So the key that we're going to choose for this is ID, and this can be whatever you want, but starting off with an ID is a good practice when developing with JavaScript arrays and objects. So we'll say ID is 1, and next we want to have an image where we navigate to our image file. So what I want to do is go ahead and navigate to it like so and select the image that goes with this product. Next, we want to have a title, and I'll go ahead and paste the title of this product. And you guys are going to notice that we started off with an ID and we used 1. This is going to be an integer in JavaScript, so we don't need to put this in quotations or anything because JavaScript will take this value as is. But since we're getting more specific with our image and our title here, we need to make these strings. So you guys are seeing that I'm doing it 2 different ways. I'm using single quotation marks to make this string here, and then I'm using double quotation marks to make this one here. You can do it either way, it's the same thing. Next, we want to have a price, and you might think, well, you can create this as an integer. Yes, you technically could, but for our case here, just to keep it nice and easy, we're going to use a string so we can put in our $sign right here, and we'll make this $197.99. And next, we want to have our description. And to keep this easy, I'm just going to go ahead and paste in that product description as a string. Next, we're going to create another key, and we're going to call this hot item. We're going to use a Boolean value. And there's 2 Boolean values of true and false. And for this one, we're going to say, yes, it's a hot item by saying true. Today, we're not really going to use this a lot, but it's just a good practice to know what a Boolean value is and how to use it in JavaScript. And then we want to add one more, which is going to be our category, which eventually we're going to use to dynamically render it based on what the user selects here. So we'll simply say Reels. And then make sure you don't put a comma on this last one or it'll start screwing things up. All right, so now I have the rest of my products with the appropriate IDs and values for each key. And keep in mind that you need to separate each with a comma, but the last one does not need a comma. And something that a lot of beginners struggle with in JavaScript is the way arrays are indexed in JavaScript. So technically, when JavaScript reads this array, they are 0 indexed, meaning it reads this first object here as 0 and then so on. So this is item 0, 1, 2, and 3. So it becomes confusing if you don't know that, because you would think that it indexes it from 1 and so on, but it starts at 0 when it comes to arrays. Now what we want to do is dynamically render all of these products onto our page. So what we need to do to make this a little bit less confusing is go back to our index.html file, and everything within our grid, we're just going to go ahead and comment out for now so you don't see it. Then we're going to go back to our products.js, create a variable called grid, and what we want to do is use document.querySelector, and what we want to do is select the element that has the class that is equal to grid. So we'll go ahead and put in that class name, and so what this is doing is storing this element here, which is a div, within this variable in our JavaScript. So from here, we need to create a function called render prods. And so we're going to start off with our const keyword, and then render prods is the name of our function, which you can call anything you want. And then what we want to do is pass a parameter. So we're just going to say R for now, and then I'll explain what's going on here in a moment. And then we'll use our arrow syntax to create our function. So the first thing we need to do is use our grid variable and target the inner HTML. And what we want to do here is make the inner HTML equal to nothing by using an empty string. Now we want to use our array parameter here. And our parameter is going to be whatever we pass into this function when we call it. So here we're just using whatever we're passing into this function. And then since we're passing in an array, we can use our array method. So we can use our for each loop. And what we want to do is pass in a parameter here, which is going to be our product, which is going to be each individual item from our array. Each item, we want to target our grid element and say .inner HTML, and we want to say plus equals. What this is going to do is it's going to loop through each individual product in our array, and it's going to add it to our grid element. So what we need to do now is use our backticks. This is going to be located in the top left of your keyboard. These are not quotation marks, so don't get confused. And inside of this, we want to put our product HTML. So we can go back to our index.html file. What I'll do is uncomment this, cut it, go back to my products.js file, and what I'm going to do is go ahead and paste in that HTML. And what I'll do really quick is format this to where it makes sense. So now you guys can see that I have all the HTML that we created right here. And what we're going to do is use this to dynamically render each one of our products from our array up here down below into our grid HTML element over on this side right here. So we're going to place each one of those elements within here. So first what we need to do is change this data-id, and what we're going to do is start off with a $sign, then our curly brackets, and here it will allow us to use JavaScript code now. So what we want to do is use each one of our products. So we'll use prod, and then we want to use our ID right here. So what we're doing is looping through this array here, going into each item and getting each item's ID. And then we need to do that same thing for the rest of these key value pairs. So for our src, we'll go ahead and change this one out, but this one is going to be prod.image. And then for our alternative text here, we're going to do the same thing. And for our alt text, we're just going to use our product title. And this we can go ahead and copy again, go ahead and paste it within our H3 element, because again, we're just going to use title here. Here, we'll paste it again, and instead of title, we'll use description. And within our H4 element, we'll go ahead and paste it one more time. And instead of title, we'll use our price. And now if we look over in our live server over here, you don't see anything showing up, because in JavaScript, to use a function, you need to call it. So right now our function is not running because we haven't called it. So all we have to do to call it initially is use the name of our function, which is render prods, and then we want to pass in our array. So the array that we want to pass in as this parameter is going to be our products array. So we can just copy this, go back down and pass this into our function. And once we do that, you guys can see that every item in our array is dynamically displaying over here on our live server dynamically. So now instead of having to do this for each individual product a million times in your index.html, you can do it dynamically with JavaScript. And the huge benefit of this is let's say I want to remove my 6th product here. I could just go ahead and delete this, and boom, there it goes. It's not there anymore. So it makes it a lot easier to make changes and edits. Last thing we need to do is change our products out based on what the user selects here in our filter. So to do this, we want to create another constant variable called filter select and make this equal to document.query selector, and we want to target an ID. So we'll put our hashtag symbol followed by category. So what we're doing is getting the element with the ID category filter. So if we go back to our index.html, you guys can see right here that that is our select element with all these options inside. So what we need to do is use that variable, and we want to add an event listener. And for this, we want to add an event listener of change. So whenever this value here changes, we want to do something. And inside of our callback function, what we want to do is pass in our event object. This is a special object that we can use since we are using add event listener. So we'll use our arrow syntax again. And what we want to do is create a constant variable called selected category. We want to make this equal to our event.target.value. So all this event object is doing is giving us information based on the event that happens to this filter select variable here, which is just going to be this select element over in our HTML. So to better understand that, what I want to do is go ahead and use the console.log statement and log out the selected category variable that we just created. And if we go over here, right click, inspect, and go to our console, you can see that nothing's showing. But if we go ahead and change this now to Reels, you guys will see that Reels appears, because all it's doing here is it's getting the value from that option. So you guys can see the value for that option is Reels because we set it over here in our HTML. If you guys want to learn more about this event object, what you can do is just start removing stuff. So if I remove .value and I go back over here and say Reels, you guys will see that now it's logging out the entire HTML element because we're just logging out the event.target, and the target is our filter select element. So that's why you're seeing this entire element. And then you guys can do this as well, but it gets a little bit confusing if you just log out the event because it just gives you so much information right here. But if you want, you can go through this and kind of learn what you have access to as far as this event object. But what we're going to do is change this back to where it just provides us the value like this. And I'll remove this console.log. Now we want to create another variable, but this time we want to use the let keyword, which is going to let us change the value of this variable. So we're going to go ahead and say filter, and we're not going to make this equal to anything. All we're doing here is initializing this variable. Now we need to create an if statement, and we need to see if our selected category is exactly equal to all. If it is, we want to make our filter products variable equal to all of our products. But if our selected category is not equal to all, what we need to do is change our filter products equal to products, and then we need to filter it, pass in each individual product where our product category is equal to the selected category. And then after all of that we just did, we can use our render prods function here. And instead of passing in our products array like we did up here, what we want to do is pass in our filtered products array. So what we're doing here with this filter method is we're returning an array with only the products that match the value that we have selected. So you guys can see this a little bit better if we go into our live server. If I change this to Reels, you're going to see that if our value is equal to reels, it only displays the products with the category that's equal to reels. So anything with lures or anything else, it will skip over and not display it. And earlier in the video today, we used
Tap here to see what happens next.